Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
All right, so we've got a really cool set of articles and some podcast transcripts here. And it seems like you're trying to, kind of get a better handle on sports English.
Yeah.
And, specifically maybe thinking about conversations and, following along with these fast-paced sports podcasts. Mm-hmm. I got to say, I'm pretty excited to dive into this stuff with you.
Yeah, me too. This will be fun.
It's like we're going to unlock this whole other world of communication. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, sports English is so much more than just, learning the jargon or anything like that. It's a way to connect with people from all over the world and understand this, this global phenomenon that goes way beyond just, what happens on the field or the court,
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I was looking at one of these articles and it actually even referred to it as like a secret code.
Uh-huh.
And I never really thought about it that way before, but it's true. Like learning sports English can actually kind of help you figure out how people think and communicate, even outside of sports.
Yeah, Krisha, have you ever had that experience?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the other day I was in this meeting and someone used the phrase level playing field. And it just, kind of hit me like, wow, we use all these sports metaphors in everyday life without even realizing it.
Oh,
it's like this, this whole secret language that everyone understands subconsciously.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we've kind of, we've established that sports English is important. But, I was noticing that all these sources really seem to stress the importance of listening to podcasts.
Yeah, podcasts are huge.
As like this huge learning tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll admit, I was a little bit skeptical at first. Like, can you really just pick up a language by listening to people talk about sports?
Well, I think it's more about being immersed in that natural flow of conversation.
Okay.
You pick up on the pronunciation, the intonation, even those little cultural things that you just wouldn't get from a textbook.
So it's almost like you're learning by osmosis.
Yeah.
You're absorbing the language without even realizing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when I was trying to learn Spanish,
Right.
I was drawn to these podcasts about football, even though I didn't really even know the rules that well.
Mm-hmm.
But the commentators, the passion in their voices, the way they described the plays, it was just so captivating. And I started understanding more than I thought I would.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even if you're not like a diehard fan, the energy of those podcasts can actually kind of draw you in and make the whole learning process more fun.
Absolutely. And, these sources actually make a really good point about the importance of, listening to commentators analyze plays.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about hearing the words. It's about understanding how they're used to break down the strategy and paint this picture of what's happening, in the game.
That actually makes me think about those clips from the basketball and soccer podcast that were mentioned in one of the transcripts.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'd be really helpful for our listeners to actually hear some of these terms being used, in real time. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to read about it, but it's another thing to actually hear the excitement in the commentator's voice.
I agree.
So, for example, imagine you're listening to a basketball podcast.
Okay.
The game's getting really intense, and all of a sudden you hear the commentator shout, "He drains a clutch three-pointer."
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you hadn't, been kind of diving into this world of sports English, you might be like, wait, what does clutch even mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Clutch is such a great example because you hear it all the time in sports.
Right.
And it's not just about making the shot, it's about making it under pressure when it really counts.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that you just, you pick up by listening.
Yeah. And it's not just knowing the definition of a word, it's like understanding that weight,
Right.
that emotional impact.
Exactly.
And then you think about something like soccer, you start hearing terms like 4-3-3 formation being thrown around.
Yeah.
And if you're new to the sport, that might sound like a foreign language. Mm-hmm. But once you understand what those numbers actually mean, and how different formations actually dictate how a team plays.
Right.
It's like you're watching the game with a whole new set of eyes.
For sure. You're not just watching these players run around. You're understanding the strategy behind every move.
Yeah.
And, this reminds me, one of the articles even talked about how understanding formations can help you predict what a team might do next.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're learning to read the game like a pro.
Exactly. And that's what makes sports English so cool.
Right.
It's not just about the language, it's about gaining a whole new perspective.
So we've talked about podcasts, we've talked about these examples from the transcripts, and how understanding terms like clutch or 4-3-3 formation can really elevate your understanding of the game. But where do we even begin?
Well, the sources actually provide a great starting point with a list of these essential terms that you'll hear in pretty much every sport.
Okay.
Like score, team, player, coach. Okay, so those are like the
building blocks.
the building blocks, the foundation.
Exactly. It's like learning the alphabet before you can write a novel. And once you've got those down, we can move on to those more, complex terms that reveal how the game works, like offense, defense, strategy, and even things like, specific formations.
As you're saying that, I just remembered this time I was watching a soccer game with some friends, and the commentator kept saying offside, and I was nodding along like I knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But I had no clue.
It's so easy to get lost in the jargon.
It is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later when I actually looked it up that I realized, oh my gosh, that one word is like crucial to understanding how the game flows.
Exactly. And sometimes even just one term like that can just unlock this whole new level of understanding.
Right. It's like a missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have. We've talked about the power of podcasts, for getting immersed in sports English, and how understanding these key terms can totally change your experience as a fan.
And there's so much more to uncover.
Oh, there is. I'm so excited to see what other insights we uncover in the next part of our journey.
Me too. Yeah. This is going to be good.
Into this world of sports English.
Yeah. It's crazy how much, sports lingo has kind of just made its way into like everyday language.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like you were saying before about level playing field.
Right.
But there's so many examples. Like, how many times have you heard someone say they hit a home run?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
With like a project at work or something.
It's amazing.
It really is.
Like they're just such a normal part of how we talk now.
Right. And one of these articles was even saying how like, these sports idioms are super common in the business world.
Oh, for sure.
Like describing someone as a team player. Or, an idea is a slam dunk.
Yeah. Like it's guaranteed to work.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. And I think that's part of what makes, learning sports English so valuable.
Totally.
It's not just about understanding the game itself. It's about understanding people.
Yeah, and connecting with them on a different level.
Right. It's like you're speaking this language that taps into all these shared experiences and emotions.
Exactly. But, it's not just about knowing like the literal meaning of these terms. It's about getting those nuances.
Oh, okay.
The cultural baggage that they carry.
Okay. Can you give me like an example of that?
Sure. So take the phrase comeback victory.
Okay.
It's not just about, a team coming back from behind to win. It's about the drama, the tension, the fact that it seemed impossible.
Right.
It's those extra layers of meaning that really, bring the language to life.
So it's almost like comeback victory. It evokes like a whole feeling.
Yeah.
A whole story.
It's more than just winning or losing.
Exactly. And this makes me think about those clips from the basketball and soccer podcast we were talking about earlier. I think this would be a great time to revisit one of those.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
So you remember that one where the underdog team was down by 15 points?
Oh, yeah.
But they somehow managed to win in the last few minutes.
Oh, that was incredible.
It was so exciting. And, listen to how the commentator uses phrases like clutch performance and unbelievable comeback to really convey, not just what happened, but how everyone was feeling.
Okay, let's hear it.
Plays audio clip.
Wow, you're so right. Just hearing that again, I can almost feel the energy of the crowd.
Yeah, the commentator is like right there with them.
It's amazing.
And that's what makes podcasts so great for learning sports English, You're not just passively listening, you're experiencing how the language is used to create all that excitement and connect with the audience.
You're not just learning a language, you're learning how to tell a story.
Exactly. And those stories are what makes sports so captivating,
Yeah, no matter what language you speak. Well, okay, so we've talked about podcasts as a learning tool. We've talked about understanding those nuances of sports idioms and even the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
But let's get practical here.
Yeah.
Like, how can our listener actually start using all this to improve their sports English?
Well, these sources actually have some great tips, and it really comes down to, active listening and immersion.
Okay.
It's like training your ear to pick out those key terms and phrases.
So it's almost like going to the gym,
Yeah.
But for your listening skill.
Exactly. One source even said to treat it like a workout,
Okay.
Listen to podcasts or watch games in English and really pay attention to how they're talking.
So don't just zone out
Right. You have to really listen.
and try to dissect the language.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And another good tip was to use online resources, like sports dictionaries and websites to really reinforce what you're learning.
Oh, that's smart.
There are so many great free resources out there.
That's awesome.
And of course, nothing beats real life conversation.
Right.
Even if you're a beginner, don't be afraid to talk to other fans.
Right.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we learn.
That's how we learn.
And, even just watching games with friends and trying to commentate in English can be really helpful.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
I think it'd be helpful to give our listener some specific examples of those sports phrases that go beyond just the basic vocabulary.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The ones that add that extra color and nuance to sports conversations.
Like game-winning shot, underdog, clutch performance, and even sportsmanship.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Those are the phrases that really capture the heart of the game,
And it's interesting how so many of them have made their way into everyday language.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the business world.
Like, how often do you hear someone describe a project as a slam dunk?
Or a tough decision as a judgment call.
Exactly. It's like sports have given us this whole new way to talk about success and failure and teamwork.
Right.
All these universal themes that everyone can relate to.
So it's almost like you're speaking a universal language.
In a way, yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive into some specific examples then.
Okay.
You mentioned comeback victory earlier, but let's start with underdog.
Okay, underdog.
I mean, that's a term that just makes you think of, hope and resilience and defying the odds.
It's about those teams or players who might not have the biggest names or the best chances of winning,
Right.
but they have this fighting spirit that everyone loves.
It's like the classic underdog story.
Yes.
Everyone loves to cheer for the team that's not supposed to win.
It's like those sports movies, where the small town team goes up against the big city team and somehow pulls off the impossible.
Yeah, it's so inspiring.
It's about challenging the status quo.
And proving that anything is possible.
Exactly.
Okay, underdog. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What about clutch performance? I feel like I hear that one all the time, but I'm not always sure I totally get it.
Well, clutch basically means, performing at your best when it matters most.
Okay.
Under pressure in those crucial moments that can win or lose the game.
So if a basketball player makes the game-winning shot with just seconds left on the clock.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of a clutch performance.
Oh.
It's about having that mental strength and that focus to deliver when everything's on the line.
Wow.
And those clutch performance moments, they're often the ones that we remember the most.
It's true. Those are the plays that become legendary.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got underdog, we've got clutch performance. Now what about sportsmanship?
Sportsmanship.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it seems like it goes beyond just the, technical parts of the game.
Yeah, it's about respecting your opponents, playing fair, and winning and losing with grace.
It's like that saying, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. Exactly. Sportsmanship is about those moments of kindness and respect, even when things get really competitive.
Right.
Like shaking hands after a tough game or, showing respect for your rivals.
I remember watching this tennis match once, and one player helped his opponent up after he fell,
Wow.
even though they were in the middle of a really important point.
That's amazing.
It was such a small gesture,
Yeah.
but it said so much about his character.
It's those moments that really stick with us, the ones that teach us about life.
It's incredible how sports can be such a powerful metaphor for life.
It really is.
Well, we've covered so much in this episode so far.
We have.
From the nuts and bolts of learning sports English to those deeper meanings behind the words.
And we've just scratched the surface.
I know there's so much more to explore.
But I think this has given our listener a good foundation.
Yeah, definitely. And before we wrap up, I think it's important to remember that, this is a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
You're not going to become fluent overnight. It takes time and practice and, a real love for the game.
So the most important thing is to just keep listening,
Yeah.
keep learning, and keep enjoying the world of sports.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's funny, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing that learning sports English isn't just about memorizing words.
Right.
It's more about tapping into this whole other way of thinking and experiencing the world.
It's true. It's about connecting with the emotions, the strategies, and those stories that make sports so universal.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting. It's not just about learning vocabulary. It's about unlocking this, whole new level of understanding and appreciation for something that people all over the world love.
And it's interesting how all these sources really stress the importance of not just listening passively, but actually engaging with the language.
Right. So it's not enough to just recognize a clutch performance, when you hear it.
Yeah.
You need to be able to actually explain why it was clutch, what made it stand out.
Exactly. It's about developing that fluency.
Okay.
That ability to not just understand, but to really express yourself using all those little nuances of sports English.
And that's where those real life conversations come in, right?
For sure.
It's about finding opportunities to talk with other fans, maybe even try to, explain a game or a play using all the terms we've been learning.
Yeah. Imagine you're watching a soccer match with a friend.
Okay.
And you're able to explain, why their 4-3-3 formation is giving them an advantage.
Wow.
Or maybe you're listening to a basketball podcast and you can really break down a player's clutch performance.
Oh, that would be so cool.
It is. It's really satisfying.
Not only would I understand the game better, but I could actually, share that knowledge and have these deeper conversations with other fans.
And that's what it's all about, connecting with people who share your passion and using language to build those connections.
Thinking back on everything we've talked about in this deep dive, it's amazing how much we've covered.
I know, right?
We've gone from the basics of sports English to these really complex idioms and phrases that paint such a vivid picture.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And I think the most important thing is that our listeners walk away feeling, excited and empowered. Like they have the tools and the strategies to keep exploring this world of sports English on their own.
I think we've given them a great starting point.
Definitely. And I think the key takeaway here is that it's a process.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Just keep practicing.
Right.
Keep experimenting with the language. And most importantly, keep having fun.
The more you immerse yourself, the more natural it'll become.
And who knows, maybe one day our listener will be the one hosting a sports podcast.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Sharing your passion with the world.
Right.
But for now, I think we should leave our listener with this thought.
Okay.
Think about a sport you've always wanted to understand better. Imagine being able to, follow the action, analyze the plays, and really get into those, those heated debates with other fans.
Yeah, those are the best.
I know.
Yeah.
And with the tools and the insights you've gained today, that world is totally within your reach.
So go out there, explore, and keep learning. The world of sports English is waiting.
This has been awesome. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.